and Curriculum Podcast.
All right, all right. Welcome to another episode on Life's Hidden Curriculum. I'm your host, Quan King. Today, let's get into job interviews. Now, before I get into that, I do want to address the fact that, I have gotten some feedback from a really good friend of mine. And I do appreciate the feedback. Basically, long story short, the podcast feels as though I'm not talking to teens and young adults. So here's a couple things with that. So first and foremost, I do want to ensure and at least to some extent, keep in mind the fact that and on any given episode, it could be a young person as young as 14 or 15, or it could be an older person as old as 25, maybe even 30 that's listening to this and they're trying to get something from it. So, whereas I understand that it may be hard to catch everything that I'm saying if you're a younger person, and it may be easier for that older demographic to kind of stay up on it. I don't want to talk down to young people, and I do recognize the fact that if you grew up in Philadelphia in the last 30, 40 years, the quality of education probably hasn't been great. So I don't want to talk to you as though you are anything less than a brilliant mind that's seeking knowledge and thirsty for information that's going to help you be the best person that you can be. But at the same time, I am college educated. I do know a lot of things. So it's hard for me to code switch in a way which it might make people who don't know as much feel comfortable, while at the same time trying to get you the information that you need. Because some of the shit is just information that you need, period. And the way I envision it is I'm talking to you as though we're in a rec center, or we're in my office at Temple University, or we're at the lobby of a YMCA, where you may run into me. We may have a conversation about something that's vitally important, right? So that's how I'm looking at it, and that's how I'm kind of talking to you in that regard. And if you were to meet me and we were to have, these kind of conversations, this is what it would sound like. I wouldn't, talk to you like, oh, well, so what you need to understand is, from a really basic level. Because I feel like that's patronizing. But I do respect the feedback, because it is true. I find it very hard to be able to talk to an audience that I'm not looking at, that I don't see. And so, like I said, I'm trying to do my best. If you feel like it's not really hitting you the way you need it to, reach out to me. Let me know. I listen to feedback, and maybe there's something specifically I can give to you or to a specific listener, or maybe there's a topic that you really want me to go into detail about that I can be helpful with. Otherwise, I'm going to keep trying to put out information as best as possible. And where it lands, where it hits. Maybe, today is not something that you can really fuck with, because you're like, I don't understand what the fuck you're talking about. But maybe a couple months from now, after you go through something or you experience something, or maybe when it becomes relevant, you'll be like, oh, let me check this episode out now, because now it might make a little bit more sense. Maybe that's the case. All right, so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about job interviews. And why I want to talk to you about that is because for some of you, if you are teens, you may be looking at getting your first job. If you are older adults, you may be looking at a situation where you're getting your first quote unquote real job, like your salary job, not working a part-time job, or not looking at like an hourly rate. So I do want to talk about some of that stuff from my experience being someone who's hired at various different levels. So I've hired people that are older than me for multiple $1,000 jobs, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I've also hired people for part-time, working summer job or something like that. So I want to provide you with some of that input that's going to help you be as prepared as possible for that. All right, so a couple things I'm going to go over, and this will probably get broken up into two sections because it's a lot of content. But we're going to talk about job listings. We'll talk about the job application process. We'll talk about resumes and CVs. We'll talk about references and screening. We'll talk about the entire interview process and different types of interviews, whether you're in person, whether it's virtual, that kind of stuff. We'll talk about follow-ups. We'll talk about drug testing and background checks. We'll talk about what to do when you get an offer and if you want to counter offer. Right. And then we'll talk about acceptance and orientation and, that onboarding process as well. I won't get into too much detail on any of these in particular, because I could really go on all day about any one particular thing. But I do want to make sure that you just get a good, decent overview so that you can be more familiar, more comfortable, because let's be honest, interviews can be intimidating. They can be scary. They can be like, yo, like, I don't know. And they can be very make you very anxious. And I know this generation deals a lot less with talking with people one on one, particularly in person. You guys are far more comfortable being online, being in that social media space. However, at a certain point, unless you're going to be self-employed, I mean, even then, you will still need to have some good interview skills, some good interpersonal skills to be able to work with other people. Because even if you do have your own business doing something, chances are you're gonna have to work with somebody else in some capacity to bring your dream to fruition. Even if you're doing this podcast, a thing like me, I mean, you may have to get a partner. You may have to work with somebody that's going to help you publish the content or refine the content or whatever the case may be. And so you may want to interview this person and see like, is it going to be a good fit? Are they going to be a good person to work with? You may have a co-host. Yeah, I won't go into it, but what I will get into is these first things. So first, let's talk about the job listing. So you might find a job listing on a number of different sites. It could be LinkedIn. It could be a job portal for a specific organization, like say Temple University, YMCA. Any number of colleges, universities are going to have a portal where they post all their jobs. Same for any cities. So if you're trying to look for a city job, like say the city of Philadelphia, their job portal is like the Office of Human Resources, OHR. And they'll have a whole different slew of postings and positions and all sorts of information related to the different jobs that they have available at any given point in time. Now, for city jobs in particular, if you're civil service, you are likely going to be required to take a test. And again, like these tests are a means of like kind of weeding out potential candidates, but also ensuring that candidates that are brought on board at least have some sort of like foundational knowledge about the thing that they may be asked to do. So instead of having to like train somebody up, at least they can say, okay, this person has a working framework of certain things that we feel confident that putting them in this position, they're qualified. So keep that in mind when you're looking at job listings. See what types of jobs that they are asking you to do, and some jobs you may not be qualified for just based off of that altogether. So what are some other things to look for? Is it an on-site job? Meaning, do you need to report work at a specific place, like a brick and mortar facility or building or space? Is it remote? Does it offer the opportunity for you to work from home and to do that job from wherever? Maybe you just need a laptop and internet connection and you can do this job. Or is it hybrid? Is it a mix? Is it a mix between those two things where maybe you have to come into the office, 2 or 3 times a week, but for the rest of the week, you get to work remotely? There are some jobs that also are travel heavy where you may check in at one specific site, but then you may be asked to move around in a location. So I'm thinking like if you're working for Verizon and you are help installing things, or if you are like my homie used to work for a Direct TV. And so what he used to do is he had to go around and, help install satellite dishes and all that kind of stuff in buildings. So those kind of things are also super important to consider if you're looking for a job. Salary, obviously, that's a big one. How much do you get paid? Everyone wants to know that. Oftentimes jobs will post that. If they don't post it, then it's okay and appropriate to inquire, but there's likely a reason why they're not posting it. For my position, if we didn't post how much it was, typically it was because it was really, really low. Or if it was really, really high and we wanted to kind of weed out certain candidates from applying for the position. So say for instance, if we're offering a position that's going to be, $150,000, we may not want to just put that it's going to be $150,000 because you may get everybody under the sun that wants to apply and make a 6-figure job, but it might not be conducive to everybody, or it might not make sense for every person that's applying, because you may not be qualified. And so instead of getting, thousands of applicants for this one position, we may want to set it up or word it in such a way where, we may say something like, salary is commensurate to experience, or basically, the pay is competitive to other positions that are like this. Now, that is a little corny, not gonna lie to you. If you have a salary, just fucking post it. Just say, yo, this is how much the job is going for. Sometimes specific organizations have a range in which they will give you the money for. So they may not have set in stone like this job is going to be $85,000. They may know internally, hey, we can pay this person anywhere from like 55,000 to like 95,000. It really depends on the quality of person that we get. So if we get somebody that's not like super qualified, but has a high work ethic and, maybe we can help mold them into something and they're going to be here for a long term, at least we kind of can get that vibe, or that's what we're looking for. Then maybe we can pay them on the low end. We get somebody with not a lot of experience. Maybe that's an internal hire, or maybe that's somebody who doesn't really know too much about the industry to know that like, hey, I could be making more. Or maybe somebody is looking to do the work and isn't really concerned about the pay. And so for them, they may be taking a pay cut. Maybe it's an older individual who's worked a whole bunch of other jobs already, has made a bunch of bread as they want to make, and they're just looking to, maybe give back or do something local in their community, and this really fits. So not really worried about the pay. That's when a lot of times an organization may not post what the salary is because it might not be a hard and fast thing. Now, other organizations are required by law to post what that salary is. So like if you're working for the city, they're required to tell you like, here is the pay range, and they'll be very exact with how much that job is going for. All right. Job requirements, job duties. So job requirements are essentially, here's what's required for you to be eligible to get this job, whether it's having a high school diploma or a college degree. Some jobs will say, hey, we need you to have a college degree in this particular field. Some will say, we just need you to have a college degree, period. It's important to know the difference between the two. Some will even say, we may need you to have a college degree in the specific field and relatable experience, at least, X number of years, or X number of years in a management position, supervising certain numbers of employees. So all of that really speaks to, they want to make sure that when you start, you're very familiar with what the expectation is going to be of your role. If they're asking you to have management experience of at least 2 years or senior level experience, they're putting you in a position where you're going to be overseeing other people. You're going to need to be able to have some people skills and management skills and know how to interact with other individuals who are now reporting to you. If they're just saying, look, we just want you to have a college education, they just want to make sure that from a basic standpoint, you can follow directions, you can work on your own and demonstrate some initiative, and you don't have to necessarily have to have your hand held and told, how to do every little thing. Now, are you going to ask questions on your job? Absolutely. You should. But if they say like, hey, we need you to go to orientation or we need you to do X, Y, and Z, it's not going to be a situation of you kind of sit on your hands and wait to be told how to do every little thing. You will at least have the wherewithal to say, okay, orientation is going to be here. I need to go get here by this time, make sure I'm on time, make sure I'm prepared and ready, and make sure I report back, et cetera, et cetera. I check in with my supervisor, that kind of stuff. Those are the things that a college education, quote unquote, afford you and gets you, as opposed to just having a high school diploma where you may not really have that sense of familiarity of knowing that, hey, I need to go and do X, Y, and Z to accomplish this one particular task. All right, job duties. Job duties are basically a breakdown of everything that you're expected to do in that job. And typically, it'll tell you a couple different things, but here's been my experience. The first 3 or 4 things are the core aspects of that job. There's a lot of fluff in the middle, and then like the last few things are like the basic minimum requirements for every employee that's going to be there. But those first few things, the first like 3 or 4, those are your big ones. Those are the key things that like on a daily basis, you're going to be expected to perform at a high level on. So if those first, and typically like the first few words of those first couple lines, whether it's management, supervision of, implementing, coordinating, like those are going to be like those kind of words that you're going to see and hear. And that's going to tell you a lot about what that job is asking you to do. So make sure you're paying attention to those things. There's going to be stuff in the middle, follow policies and procedures. Can you show up to work on time? Can you effectively communicate? Those are kind of run-of-the-mill basics that's expected of everybody that works at any given job, but they just kind of make sure that they have it in there, so to speak, so that they cover their bases from a legal standpoint as well, because you also want to make sure that anything that we're asking employees to do, that it's going to be consistent across the board for the entire organization. So, if showing up on time is important to that organization, they're just going to put it like, make sure that you show up on time, that you're prompt, courteous, that kind of stuff. If you're in a public facing space, they're going to have things like customer service, and having customer service at a high level, or at least to the standard that this business or this organization wants you to have. reporting lines. Now, this isn't in every job description, but in a lot of them that involve more complicated or sophisticated structure or hierarchy when it comes to jobs, it'll tell you like this position reports to this person. It may be important that you kind of check out, if you can, see online what that hierarchy looks like. So, and that'll also tell you sometimes pay, sometimes in terms of influence and quote unquote power in that organization where you are. So if you're reporting directly to a manager, or if you're reporting to a vice president, or if you're reporting to the president or the CEO, like all those things are important. They tell you how big that company is, but it also tells you kind of what the pecking order is at that organization. So if you're looking at a position and you report to a junior manager, well, then likely that junior manager reports to a higher level manager, and that manager is going to also report to now some sort of executive, and that executive may then report to one of your C-suite, which are your chief of kind of role. So you might have like a chief of human resources, a chief of operations, your CEO, chief executive officer. Then you may have like a chief of finance, which is your chief finance officer, like those kind of things. And that's what the C-suite kind of means. And then all the people that are below that kind of report up, and it's like a big triangle. And at the top, you have your CEO, your president. Now, what's often not considered as well is a lot of these organizations have a board of directors. And historically, or I should say, a properly functioning business organization, that board of directors, they actually are in charge of the CEO. The board of directors are the ones that actually are supposed to be running the entire organization. They just don't do it from a we work at the company role. They do it in a role of like, we are the lead consultants for the company. And although the CEO or the main boss, the president, may sit on the same board as this board of directors, he's a member of the board. He is not the person that like gets to have the end all be all say. Now, organizations, businesses are structured in a lot of different ways. Not every business or organization has a board of directors, but or board of stakeholders or shareholders. It all depends on how that organization, how that business is set up. If you are a nonprofit, you're going to have a board of stakeholders. If you are a for-profit, you're probably going to have a board of shareholders. And those things are different. Shares are how many people are invested in your business, meaning they then benefit if your business does well. So they're going to want to have a say in terms of how their money is handled and how their investment is handled. So, because again, if they put $20 in, well, they want to get more than $20 out of this. Where stakeholders, they have a stake in the company because they believe in the company. They want the company to do good and do the most good or do a thing. And they're really invested in seeing that that company does the thing that it's supposed to do, whether it's meeting a public good or providing a service to the community. Now, not all organizations, not all businesses are built or created the same. Some do really great work. Some say they do great work, but on the back end, they're just really about making money. It's up to you to determine and figure that out. Ask questions, do your background research on companies, just like they're going to do a background search on you, and see if it's going to be a good fit for you. But that's why the reporting lines are important, to see where you kind of fall in line in terms of all these employees and all these staff. All right. How long has the position been open is another good question. Look and see when the job was posted. Why is this important? Because it'll tell you a couple things. If the position has been posted more than 30 days, then it tells you that they've been looking for somebody and haven't found anybody yet. If it's been open longer than 30 days, chances are that they're kind of getting desperate. Either the person that they had in mind didn't work out, maybe the backup person thought the pay wasn't good enough, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of those different things. If it's just been posted, anticipate and expect that there's going to be a lot of people applying for jobs, particularly in the climate that we're in right now. Everybody's looking for work. Not everybody's hiring, and not everybody's qualified for certain positions. So in some instances, you have a bunch of jobs available and no qualified candidates. In other spaces, you have overly qualified candidates and a handful of jobs. So I would say make sure that really look and see how long has a job been posted and how long it's been open. If it's only been open for a couple of days, don't expect to get a bunch of feedback because they're probably getting flooded with applicants. Put your application in, make sure you got everything that they're asking for, put it in, and then you kind of wait, give it like 2 weeks or so, before you kind of inquire. And I would say the first thing you want to do, after 2 weeks is check the website and see if the job is still posted. If it's no longer posted, that means they've gone into the hiring process and they've started interviewing candidates and they feel like they have a really good solid feel as to the number of individuals or their top picks for those jobs. If you haven't heard anything, and it has been taken down, I would say inquire just to double check. But there's a good chance if you haven't heard anything and the job's been taken down, then in all likelihood, they have their finalists for those positions and you're probably not one of them. Now, in some instances, jobs and businesses work really, really fucking slow, right? That's just a fact. And so they may really like you and they say, you know what, we have you and two other people in mind that we want to have because internally we just want to have three people, right? We just have to make sure we get three people. We definitely want to get you, but we got to get two other people. So now that we got you, we found us two other people. Now we're going to close it because out of these three, one of them is definitely going to, get the job and we're good with that. And so they may take it, they may take the job offline. But again, that's why it's important to just follow up, reach out and ask what the status of that job is. And if they've found their candidates or not. Okay. So the job application itself. Now, the most important thing is when does it close? Most oftentimes they'll post when they want to receive applications by. Don't overlook that. Submit your shit on time. Don't fuck around. Like this is one of those situations where if they say the 28th, have this shit done on the 27th. Like don't wait till the last minute. For a number of reasons, because if you wait till like the last day, typically, and I'll tell you from my experience, I'm looking at candidates that have applied like the earliest. And I will give it until the last day. But 9 times out of 10, I've been looking this entire time since it's been posted. So if I posted the job for, let's say 3 weeks, right? I give it 3 weeks. After the first 2 days, I would say, then I'm gonna start looking at candidates who've applied. So if I posted it on the 2nd and I'm gonna keep it over for 2 weeks, which is gonna end up being like the 24th or so, roughly, let's just say that 25th. Then what I'm gonna do is on the 4th, I'm gonna start looking at applications. I'm gonna start seeing who's already applied because that tells me these are people who are eager to get a job and they're more likely to really want this job and really want to do it. I'm gonna look through those applications and see what the quality of applicants looks like. If it's all just like, man, this ain't gonna work out, then I'm gonna give it some more time and maybe look after the first week. If I see somebody really, really good, if I got really good candidates, I might not really want to wait until the end of this posting period to bring people in. And that might be a situation where, yeah, I might end up closing or stop taking applications after a certain point in time because I might say, look, it's been like a week and I already got like 12 outstanding candidates for like 2 positions. So of these 12 people, there's going to be at least 2 of these people that are definitely going to get this job. And so there's really no point really continuing to look at more and more and more applicants, particularly if I feel like I can get people that are already overqualified for this that are going to knock it out the park. But again, that varies depending on different organization, different business. Now, one thing that I've definitely seen more lately is that gone are the days of having paper applications. Like your fast food jobs, your kind of entry level, really basic starter jobs are still going to have, an application that you might fill out in person. You might actually meet somebody in person and fill out a paper application, but more often than not, you're going to have an online application, which for a lot of different sites are going to require you to create a profile. So make sure you have a somewhat, I would say, a professional email address that you can use. Don't put like hot pink kitty 774, nothing crazy like that. Avoid numbers that have a certain connotation with them. So you already know what I'm about to say. 420, 67, triple sixes, all that kind of stuff. No, get you something that kind of speaks to you that's professional. Maybe it's part of your name or your initials in your name and like a number. Maybe it's a birthday. Maybe it's the year you were born or something like that. Or maybe it's the current year that you're applying. Like those things are fine. Again, make it personal. Make sure there's something that makes sense, but also make sure it's not something that's going to be inappropriate or misconstrued the wrong way. Because again, you're making the first impression with these individuals and you want to make sure that they take you seriously. They don't think that you're a joke or that you're just like out here trying to be a troll. So that's that for the application and the portal. A portal basically is like a site that is used where you put information in and then they can also put information on there. So instead of you contacting a person directly, they may have a portal where they'll tell you like what stage of the interview process or the hiring process that you may be in. Maybe they've received your application and so now you have a green check mark, or maybe it just tells you like application received, pending review. Maybe then it'll tell you like the next step is like application has been approved, looking to schedule an interview or whatever. But a lot of times the portal kind of functions as that 24-hour space where you can find out information about the job that you've applied for. That's basically all it is. And a lot of times they do require that you create a profile, so then they kind of keep track of your information that way so that they can like send out emails, and like help schedule and coordinate interviews, that kind of stuff, should you get along in that process. All right, interview questions. I've also seen this on some of these applications where they do ask some questions. Now, it's important to take these questions seriously because as someone who reads these interview applications, I oftentimes look at the questions to see what the responses are. Are they using full sentences? Is there proper punctuation? Is it in all caps? Does it make sense? Is it a full, complete sentence? And also, what is the response? Like if I ask a question that's related to the job and you give me a response that doesn't really speak to the question, then that kind of gives me the impression that you really don't know what you're applying to. And maybe this is like a reach opportunity for you. And for some people, that might be the response I want. For others, that might be, this person's not qualified. So again, take those questions very seriously. There's not really an opportunity to ask a follow-up or ask for clarification. I wouldn't recommend using Gemini or any sort of AI to answer a question because again, that can also be seen through relatively easily, and they'll put like limits in terms of like how long the response can be. So I would definitely make sure that if there are questions, answer them to the best of your ability. And if you're unsure, just put not sure or don't know. Because again, it may seem counterintuitive, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are being authentic and being genuine with the information that you're giving them so that they can make the best decision for themselves. And if there's a space on the application, fill it out. Fill out every space that's on there. Leave nothing blank because again, when I get that application back, I'm looking at everything. If there's something blank, whether it's a birthday, whether it's information related to a job related question, whether it's a signature, whatever it is, that makes a difference. And oftentimes, as someone who interviews and reads these resumes and applications, I start putting stuff in a pile. Did they complete everything on time? Is it complete? Does it answer the questions? Like they'll just go into different piles, and automatically, if somebody hasn't filled it out completely, I'm disregarding it. Like I'll still look through it, but more often than not, if you haven't completed everything, then there's a good chance that it's just going to go in the like do not hire pile. Because again, it's a basic fundamental part of the process. I need you to follow directions. Like let's say if you're coming to work for me and I give you a directive and I say like, hey, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And you take it upon yourself to be like, I'm gonna do X, I'm gonna do Y, but I don't really feel like doing Z. But they say that's gonna be a problem. And that's what I can see if I can look at your job application and see that you won't fill out everything completely, that you'll pick and choose what you think is important. But that's not really what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to just follow through on everything. Even if something you don't know, I'd rather you tell me, hey, I don't know, I don't understand, I don't get this, as opposed to you not filling it out altogether. And also make sure you attach all requested documents and paperwork. So if I'm asking for a resume, if I'm asking for a reference, if I'm asking for resources, if I'm asking for like an 8th grade paper that you did, like attach it. Even if you can't find it, just say like couldn't find it or whatever. But keep in mind, like there's a reason why those things are being requested. And oftentimes that becomes part of your work packet. If you do get hired, that becomes your part of your personnel file. So we have all information on file, on hand, ready to go. So if you're missing something, that's going to be problematic because chances are the documents and paperwork that we're looking for are necessary to expedite the process of you getting hired on the job. All right, let's get into resumes and CVs. CVs are curriculum vitae. I believe that's what it's called. It's Latin. Basically, those are like relevant experiences that you have for your life and things that you've accomplished and you've done. Usually you'll see CVs for more really advanced professional type jobs. We're talking about like doctors, or we're talking about things that require like advanced degrees. You may have a CV for that. And oftentimes CVs are also used in different countries. They don't call them resumes. They may call them CVs. Similar, very, very similar thing. They just basically want to know like what is it that you have done? What have you accomplished? And have all the information that's relevant and pertinent to that job. So resumes, they are broken down in a couple different categories. Here's the main stuff that you have in your resume: contact info. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a resume that just has a name, that has the date on it, and that doesn't have anything else. And I'm like, how am I supposed to get in contact with you? Like, you don't have a phone number, or you have a phone number that doesn't work, right? You have old information on a resume. That's not good. Or you don't have an email, or you don't have like a physical mailing address, because again, there may be information I need to get to you that our job sends a certain way. So if you don't have a physical mail address, that's going to be a problem. Another thing to consider is that certain jobs are looking for people in certain areas or different parts of the city. So let's say, for instance, let's say you're applying for a job in South Philly, right? And let's say it's a job that requires you to be there at 4 o'clock in the morning. This is hypothetically, right? But you live all the way out in Mayfair, right? Now that's far. That's far to go to a job, and you need to get there at 4 o'clock in the morning. So one of the questions is going to be, do you have reliable transportation? Because you may not be able to catch the bus or the train to be able to get to that location at 4 o'clock in the morning, but I can tell from your address what part of the city you live in. So if I see that you have a South Philly address, then I'm probably less likely to be concerned about your transportation being an issue, as opposed to if you live further away. The further away you live, now I have questions. Also, address indicates if you're in the state or not. For instance, if you live in Jersey, you have to actually pay a different tax for working out of state and then commuting and all that kind of stuff. So all those things are actually important in the process of you being able to get hired for a job. Not just applying, but get hired. And again, same thing. I might look at that and say, person lives too far, next applicant. Just not gonna work. It doesn't even make sense, particularly for a certain pay rate. If the salary isn't there, then it doesn't make a lot of sense. I've looked at people who've applied for jobs that are full-time jobs, but it's not, it's a livable wage. But if you were like living on your own by yourself, not really enough to start a family, and you already have a place situated, looking to move, nah, this job not gonna be for you. So if I'm looking and you are, you're applying from out of state, for me, that's gonna be a red flag. Cause I'm gonna say, well, chances are that you're looking to move and relocate, and this job is not gonna be able to support you being able to do that. Now, if you're providing an address from like you were in school and that's where you currently live, and you're looking to graduate, you're going to move anyway, and you're moving back home, then that's a different conversation. But again, I need to be able to gauge that from your address, because that might be one of the questions now I bring up in the interview, is to say, hey, I saw on your resume that you live here. Like, is transportation going to be an issue for you being able to do this job? Or what does your current, living situation look like, so that we can make the best choice moving forward? Or in some instances too, a job may be able to cover the expenses of you moving. They may cover part, if not all, of those moving expenses. Again, that's something that's important to know in that process. And that's why having that kind of information on there is important. Also, fun fact, you may not realize that some people may actually know where you're from. They may know people, or they may inadvertently know you indirectly. So if you put an address on there like, yo, are you such and such's nephew? My God, that's great. Da, 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 da. Now you got to in for the job. But again, if you never put that information on there, the person interviewing may never be able to make that connection. Right. And so you want to make sure that you can put yourself in the best position possible to do so. Now, I'll admit that people can use that against you too and say, well, this person is from this neighborhood, or they're from this city, or they're from this zip code. I don't really like that person. That happens too. Is it supposed to happen? No, because that's called discrimination. But does it happen? Absolutely. So again, it can be a pro, it can be a con. I leave it up to you to make that decision. But my experience has always been, more information, the better. And providing that kind of information is beneficial, because again, it helps place the person hiring you to have a deeper understanding of who they're talking to when they reach out to you. All right. And here's another thing too. Oh, another part of your resume is going to be your education. Basically, where'd you go to school? What'd you do? Now, as you get older and you move along, having certain information just isn't relevant anymore. So right now, for teen and young adults, putting high school, fine. right? But I think after you get a certain point, being an adult, where you went to high school isn't really relevant for jobs that you're looking for. They're going to know, did you go to college? Did you go to college? Did you graduate? Did you graduate? What'd you study? What'd you study? What'd you get? What were your grades? Like what were you ranked in your class kind of deal? I mean, not every job requires all of that information, but some jobs do. Really, they want to see, like, did you go to college? Did you finish? And what did you study when you were in college? Those are the big things. High school, not so much, unless you went to like a really stand-up high school. So if you went to Masterman, put that on there. If you went to Central and you graduated, with honors, put that on there. Did you go to Villanova? Put that on there. Penn, put that on there. The next spot on your resume is going to be related skills and experience. So that's when we start posting previous jobs, mentorship opportunities, volunteering, things of that nature that you've done in the past. And why is it relevant to the job that you're applying for? So one thing I've realized and I've learned, having had a bunch of different jobs, is that not everything that you've done is relevant, right? So I've been a sports official with a beer league. I've cleaned toilets and done like janitorial stuff. I have been an assistant athletic director. So I've done like game day management and facility operations and equipment management. I've done a lot of different things, right? But depending on what I'm applying for, I want to put that relevant information in my resume. I might not put everything on there, but I might put the things that are the most relevant, the most important, particularly because there is a belief that you should want your resume should only be one page. If I have to like flip through multiple pages, that kind of stuff, then oftentimes you have to keep in mind that the person reviewing these applications are only looking for key things. And whatever you do to make their job easier is going to be a better situation for you. Now, keep in mind, because they're using portals and they're using like online places for you to do this stuff, a lot of are using AI. So they're just like typing in certain keywords now to say, find this in the resume or find this relatable experience or find these different things. And then AI will like sort through and populate the best applications based off of certain requirements that they put in. So it may not be as much of an issue these days in terms of the length of your resume, but traditionally speaking, trying to fit it all on one page has been like the go-to. And with that being said, making sure that you're putting relevant information and relevant experience on your resume is important, right? So if I'm applying for a job where I'm going to be managing a staff and they're going to go out into the community and work on a political campaign, saying that I clean toilets maybe isn't the most relevant. Have I done anything where I work with small groups? Have I done anything where I engage in it with the community? Have I done anything where I've been, involved in politics or anything like that? Those are the experiences that I want to put on my resume and make sure they're prominent, make sure they're relevant, and make sure they're fairly recent. If I've done something that is related to the job, but I haven't done it in 20 years, that's going to be a question. Like, well, we see you've done it, but like, what have you been doing the last 20 years? That's going to be a question that's going to come up in an interview. Should I get an interview? So you want to have an answer for that as well. All right. In short, your resume is telling your story on paper. So can I look at this resume and see what this person has done? I've been in conversations with people where we've reviewed resumes and we've looked at literally like years. Like, why were you at this company for 7 years? Why were you at this company for 2 months? Like, what happened there? This feels like this would be really relevant to the job you're applying for, but you were only there for 2 months. Or I want to see, like, are you currently working somewhere right now? And why are you trying to leave that job? Like, these are, again, all the information I'm getting for your resume turns turns into interview questions that we have later. So making sure that you have good relevant information on your resume is important and also to your benefit. References. So references and screening. References are important. What I will tell you is your references kind of show what your network looks like, who you're connected to, who you know, and who may be able to vouch for you or put in a good word for you. And it also shows who you're connected to. So if you are in a particular industry doing a job, maybe you know people, maybe you are connected in such a way where I can reach out to one person and get more information about you, or I can find somebody that'll tell me, hey, this person at this current job is indispensable. They're phenomenal. They're great. If they ever left, that whole company would go under. They'd be terrible. They would shit themselves. And that might say, "Ooh, I want to get this person." But if they know that, then they may be more enticed to say, hey, I know that we put that we're gonna hire for like 65,000, but in your case, there is some flexibility there where we may want to be able to see if we can get you like 85, 90. Man, that's a big jump. That means they really, really want you. but that could be because they know about you now. They know that you're well connected and you're well respected in the industry. That's what they're looking for. But in terms of references, I would say avoid personal references, right? So not your friend, not grandma, not mom, dad, unless that those are requested for. Now, those might be requested if you are in a position or if you're going for a position that has some ethical implications. That may want to know what your character is like, who you are as a person may be important. Now, that's not for most jobs. Most jobs just want to know what your professional references are, like people who have worked with you, like colleagues, past employees, any mentors or advisors, or any other professionals that are in that field that you're connected to. Like those are the references that they want to see. And I would say the highest level at a job or a place that you've been at. So, for instance, let's say you work at Wawa and you are just a regular kind of day shift employee, and you come in, you only work like 6 hours a day, and you work maybe 20 plus hours a week, right? Having your direct manager on there is expected, right? But let's say you were able to get the regional manager of Wawa as your reference. You know how different that weighs on a resume? One, it says like, how is this person who only works like a regular part-time job at Wawa? How is it that they know the regional manager? Like, are you related? Is it a friend of the family? Like, what is it? That, again, that's going to be a question that's going to show up in your interview more than likely, if they actually look at your interview. But if it's something where it's like you made a great impression and this regional manager is like a actual contact, that's going to look really, really good on your resume. And that's somebody that can really vouch for you and speak very highly of you and say like, hey, this is somebody that even though that they work in this part-time role, here's all the things that they do. And they're going to be able to talk to you on a higher level that the person interviewing for is going to be able to hear certain things that they want to hear. Where you might not be able to articulate those things, your reference might be able to and be able to get you that damn job. That's why it's important to have those things. Now, I'm not saying go out here and be trying to brown nose and, trying to kiss up to everybody that's higher up. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is if you happen to make that connection and it's a positive one, and that person doesn't mind being a reference for you, then that's something that you want to have on there, right? So that's huge. That's super, super huge. Can't stress that enough. Having good quality references on your resume is important. And I will say this, references are not always called, but they can be a deciding factor in you getting hired. So what do I mean by that? I might see a reference. I might not be the person that makes the call about the reference. There might be somebody else that manages that or does that. Or we may not get to your references until we're getting to the point where we're going to make a decision. And then we want to check with the references as like a last measure. Because if I call a reference and they're like, yo, they're applying for what? Hell no. I mean, professionally, I'm not going to say hell no. But what I will say is this person wasn't on time. This person had a very difficult time staying focused. This person couldn't follow through and was always late with projects. Those are going to be the situations that are going to be a negative experience for you. So make sure you have references that are actually going to put positive information for you, or at least give a good recommendation. Don't put your past employer if you quit your job and you walked out and you cursed everybody out and told them where they can go. That's not gonna be somebody you want to put on your reference. All right. So now let's get into the interview process. So let's say you get called in for an interview, right? They set up a date and time. We want to bring you in. Let's do an interview. Cool. That's what you want to hear. That's exciting, but also that's super stressful, right? Because now it's like, oh shit, I gotta meet somebody in person and talk about myself. And people don't like necessarily doing that. But if you know a little bit about the process, that can help. So let's get into it. What you want to do is, and I'll give you some advice that my mentor told me. You want to make a good impression. And here's the best way to think about it. It's like you're trying to get married on the first date. So you want to swing for the fences. You want to make sure that when you walk away from the interview, that they feel like, damn, I feel like I would be missing out if I didn't hire this person. And it could be for any job. It could be working at Rita's, right? You want to make them feel as though like, if you let me leave, you don't hire me this job. Like you have a terrible summer. Terrible. But here's some things to consider. Dress professionally, right? Don't overdo it, because people can see through that and it looks weird. It feels wrong. It tells me that you're not experienced enough in this process, and that could be a problem for the job. So what do I mean by overdressing, right? So let's say you're going for a part-time job, and you're working at Wawa, right? Don't go in there jeans and a t-shirt. Don't go in there in sweatpants, New Balances and a North Face on or a Nike Tech. No, no, no. Go in there with like a nice polo, some nice dress pants, belt, and nice shoes, right? Make sure your colors coordinate, all that kind of stuff. Matter of fact, dress like you going to church. Not like over the top old head church and not Easter Sunday church. Go in there like you got to go to Sunday school, right? Go in there like that. Like you got to go up to the altar, you got to say something to the congregation, and you really don't want to, but you know you have to, so you got to wear something nice. Don't overdo it. If it's hot as hell outside, people are going to ask why you got a whole black like suit on. It's hot outside. You're gonna be sweating. You're gonna be uncomfortable. As people can read through all that, so make sure it makes sense. I've interviewed for a bunch of positions. I've interviewed for a position where my suit coat didn't fit anymore, and so I had to improvise. And what did I do? I threw a button-down shirt on with a tie, threw a sweater over top, but like a quarter zip sweater type situation. Threw that over top. Boom. Nice pants, nice shoes. Hit. Got the job. I got the job partly because one, they definitely really wanted me. Two, I was qualified, maybe overqualified. Three, I had the experience. So it was almost like a no-brainer. But still, you have to come in looking the part to some extent. Think about what your everyday experience is going to be if you were to have this job. How would you dress for that job? Come in dressed a little bit better than that for that interview. If you go in with like a whole tuxedo on and a hat and a cane, you are not going to get the job because people are going to think that you're not taking it seriously, whether you know what to do or not to do. Like, so just keep that in mind. Certain positions, yes, wear a suit. Like if you're going for like a business position, or if you're going, if I don't want to put numbers on this, but if let's just say if you're looking at a job where you're making more than $50,000, I would say go and put a suit on. Again, make sure it's weather appropriate. Make sure you're not gonna be in there sweating. Make sure that it's, again, weather appropriate, weather permitting, and make sure it fits properly. We can get to a whole different conversation about how your clothes are supposed to fit later, but just make sure it fits. Be yourself. Be yourself on the interview. That's the most important thing. Be yourself. Be honest. Be open. Be vulnerable where you need to be. Be confident in yourself and your abilities and what you bring to the table. Be on time. On time is late. Early is on time. And late is unacceptable. So if your interview's at 4 o'clock, you show up at 4 o'clock, you're late. If your interview's at 4 o'clock, you show up at 3:30. Now, if you show up at 4 o'clock or 4:01, that's unacceptable. There's a good chance you're probably not gonna get the job. Now, here's the caveat. Here's a little asterisk I'll put by that. Let's say something happens and you call them in advance and say, "Hey, I'm running a few minutes late. Should we reschedule or anything like that?" Now, again, you're still running the risk of potentially not getting the job because I might say, "You know what? Don't worry about it. You weren't one of my top three anyway. Good luck in your future endeavors." You might get that response. You may. However, if you call in advance, you may be able to reschedule, which again, I'm looking at this as you're already an employee now. What's going to happen if you're running late to a meeting or you're running late somewhere? Now I know you're going to call me in advance. That's the kind of shit I'm looking for at an employee. Somebody that's going to take that initiative and say, "Yo, I'm running a few minutes late. I just want to let you know, like, we can reschedule, we can do whatever." Like that's professional. That is mature. That's what I need in a colleague and a coworker. I don't need somebody that's going to leave it up in the air like, "Oh, well, their interview's at 4 o'clock and it's 4:25. Like, I haven't heard anything. I guess they're not going to show." And you come strolling at 4:30 like, "Oh, my bad. Like, I was stuck in traffic." No, we can't do that, bro. You can't. Like, you need to let me know in advance. And most places, especially if there's like a entry level job where they used to work with young people, they'll tell you, like, "Yo, you can't be doing that kind of stuff." They'll let you know. Other places after that, though, where they expect to have a little more experience, you're not going to get a call back. They'll probably just cancel your interview right there. And depending on, how strict they are, how serious they are, you might not get a 1 minute grace period. You stroll in, they see that you're not there before 4 o'clock. Oh, this person's not showing up. Cancel. We'll bring in somebody else. We'll go to our next one. And you stroll in right at 4 o'clock, ready to go. And they're like, "No, I'm sorry, we moved on already." Good luck. So be early, because being early is on time. Have questions for them. Again, think about this being a relationship, a new relationship. You are sharing your time. They are sharing their money. So you want things out of this job just like they want things out of you. So have the conversation. Make sure that you're bringing good questions to the table, and we can talk about what some good questions are for any job a little bit later. But again, keep in mind, it's a two-way interview. So if they're asking you questions, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions as well, and make sure that you have some good questions ready for them. And also, when you're wrapping up, one of the questions you can definitely ask is like, when should you expect a call? Whether it's a yes or a no, if they do that, ask and say like, hey, like if I don't get the job, am I still gonna get notified? Like how will I be notified? Or if I do get a response, when can I expect that response to be? Is it gonna be in 2 weeks? Is it gonna be by the end of the week? Can you give me an idea of like what I should expect? Because nobody likes to be kind of left out there. Like it would be like if you went out on a date with somebody for the first time and then y'all just like, all right, well, okay, all right, see you later, maybe. I don't know, I guess. Right? That would be really weird, right? And you don't know, like, was that just one date or is this going to be like another date later? Like, I don't know. So again, you want to have that follow up. One of the questions you say is just basically, thank you for the interview. I really appreciate it. When are you guys expecting to make a decision for this job? And how should I expect to receive that information? Is it going to be via email? Is it a phone call? Will you contact me even if I don't get the position? Just so I can know and weigh my options kind of deal. All right, so real quickly, let's go through a couple different types of interviews that you might experience. Right now, with us being in a post-COVID world, we have phone and virtual interviews, which are far more prominent. Now, I will say this too, depending on like the level of the job, you may go through all of these steps. You may go through multiple rounds of interviews and it might have different types. You might go through a first round, which is like a phone interview type, or they might just like kind of verify your information. Then you might get like like a virtual interview where it's like you on camera on your laptop or whatever, have an interview. And then if you pass that round, you might go on to like an in-person interview where they might ask you to come to the work site and interview there, meet some of the staff that all work there, that kind of stuff. And then we'll go from there. And then sometimes you might even have a third interview. You might interview with like the CEO of the company or like some of the C-suite or higher ups. Again, it all depends on the type of job that you're applying for. And so with that being said, there are different types of interviews and different ways to prepare and things that you should know for those different things. So for a phone or virtual interview, make sure, stable connection, a stable connection. If your connection is choppy, you're going in and out, you can't hear, they can't see you, all that kind of stuff, that's not going to bode well. Not going to bode well at all. And again, that's a situation where it's like, all right, well, put you in the special pile. Make sure you got clear sound. Make sure we don't have any noise or distractions in the background. Now, certain situations are going to be what they're going to be. Minimize them as best as possible. If you expect that you're going to have distractions or there's going to be something going on, make sure you're telling the interviewer in advance to say, hey, I am in this location. There might be something that might happen. So in the event that happens, can we just pause? Or, maybe it might be better if we reschedule, yada, yada, yada. Again, make sure that you're being upfront because that reflects that you are somebody that's mature, that's understanding of what the moment is, and that that you're there, like you're with it and you're paying attention. Because otherwise, if we're just having a conversation, all of a sudden it's blah, 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 going in the background. As the interviewer, I'm distracted. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is this? Like, this person thinks I'm a joke. Like, I'm wasting my time here. Like, no. So you don't want to do that. Don't want to have that happen. Make sure if you're on a virtual call, make sure your visuals are clear. Make sure I can see you. If you're blurry, if the contrast or the color's all off, if your light is too bright and you're washed out, like let's not do that. If you're on your phone or if you're on like another a camera device and all I can see is your forehead, come on now, like what are we doing? If all I can see is your chin, or if I'm looking up and it's looking up your face and I can see up your nose, like nah, like make sure I can see you straight on as if I am talking to you sitting down across the table from me. That's the kind of, vision that we want to see. I want to see you. I want to see who I'm talking to. I might want to hire and be on the staff with me. I want to get to know you as a professional. And again, if you're going to be on a virtual call, nothing inappropriate in the background. Nothing inappropriate. Not people, not objects or anything like that. Um, Definitely nothing that's going to have, profanity or drug related stuff or alcohol related things. None of that stuff. Now, I will say try to avoid having like a completely blank background. But if you can't help it, that's better than having, too much nonsense going on in the background too. Because again, as I'm looking, like I'm getting distracted now looking at all this other stuff going on in the background. All right. If you're doing an in-person interview, these are fun. Be on time. Like I said before, do not be late. Same thing for a phone interview. Don't be late for that either. So the interview starts when you arrive at the location. Keep this in mind. I can't stress this enough. This is from my own personal experience. The moment you get there, every person you interact with is going to have something to say about your interview. So think about it like this, and this is going to add anxiety, and you just got to deal with it. Everyone is watching and silently grading you, from the parking attendant and security to the CEO and board members who might be in that building. Everybody. Think of it like that. You ain't got to win everybody over, but just know that everybody's taking a little stock. Like, oh, I remember I saw you. This is my first impression when I saw you. So if you come in blasting music and you smoking weed and you pull up to security and like, yo, I'm here for a job interview, yo. Do you think that they're not going to talk to the person that's hiring? You think that they don't already know that certain positions are hiring? They know. And they know what to expect because they've already been told. So now they see you coming in. They're like, nah. They're gonna send a little note real quick. What was your name, sir? Oh, okay. Yeah. You're not gonna get it. Even if you like wild them in an interview, they're gonna talk to security. Security be like, yeah, he came in, smell like weed, driving all fast, tinted windows, blasting music. I don't know if that's what we want, running this certain division or something like that. Now, again, is that right? No, but it's how you present yourself. If you coming in, let's be serious. Let's class it up. Let's be ready for this opportunity. Have personality and be engaging and communicate when you're on the interview. If you not looking, if you're not making direct eye contact, if you're not really saying clearly what your thoughts and your feelings and what your answers are. If I ask you a question, like, tell me about a time where you were in a leadership position and you're like, oh, well, one time I was working at camp and I was I'm just going to tune you out. I'm like, nah, I'm cool. I'm a harsh interview person. I'm just going to take that as the final answer. I'm not even going to ask you to repeat yourself. I'm not going to ask you to speak up. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to say, this is how you want to present yourself. This is the choice that you're making. And so with that in mind, here's where I am with regards to my decision. You made the choice and decision to come in here and present yourself like this. Here's my choice and decision as a result. So have some personality. Be yourself. If you're weird, it's okay being weird. If you are uncomfortably weird, try to tamp that down, or at least give me a heads up in advance so I can kind of not judge you by that. But be engaging and communicate. Again, this is an opportunity for me to get to know you as an individual who's applying for a job and a future professional with the company or organization. Do not lie. Do not embellish. If you don't have skills or if you don't know what you're talking about, I'm going to be able to tell very quickly because I can ask you certain questions and you're going to answer them very truthfully, very honestly, very easily. What is your name? But if I ask you to tell me something specific about the job and you start making things up and you're like, oh, well, kind of, then I'm gonna know that you don't know what you're talking about. And again, that's going to translate into when you have the job, now you're doing things that you're not supposed to be doing. You're talking out of turn and you're saying things that you shouldn't say, all that kind of stuff. And that's the things that, again, we don't want. We may not want that in the company, right? We might already have that. We're trying to get rid of that. So again, let's be smart about our response. If you don't know something, there's nothing, unless it's a critical function of the job. If you don't know something, it's better to admit that you don't know it, unless, again, it's a critical function. Because oftentimes that's an opportunity for you to learn and to be trained on those things. And that could be what your supervisor's job now becomes. It's just like, hey, make sure you train them on this. They need to know X, Y, and Z. And if it's something that maybe is specific to that job, that they have a unique way of doing it, that's probably why you may not know it. And that's why they can train you or teach you on those kind of things. But if you just try to act like you know it, then it's like, you don't need a training then. Cool. Now you get hired for the job, you know what you're doing. And now they're upset, like, well, why didn't you said in the interview that you knew X, Y, and Z? It's like, oh, well, see, I. And for a lot of jobs, they have a probationary period where you might get fired for something like that in the first 90 days. So again, make sure you're being smart, make a good decision. Don't lie, don't embellish. Anybody that interviews you, ask for a card, business card if they have one. Because here's the thing, the person interviewing you is going to be one of your primary and direct contacts when it comes to getting follow-up information. Let's say you guys have a great rapport, great conversation, you take their business card, give it a couple of days. Like I said, keep that 2-week window open. If you already know when to expect to receive word by, then just wait until that point in time. If that point in time comes and goes, then I would say, after that is when you reach out. And I would say first reach out very passively, which is email. So let's say they're going to go until Friday. They're going to have a decision by Friday. Okay, cool. Friday comes and goes. Monday morning, I say hit them up via email. and just say, hey, just looking for a status update, trying to see if you guys have made a decision on this position yet. I can be reached, at this time, at this phone number, or you can email me back, et cetera, et cetera. Really looking forward and excited to hearing what you guys have. That kind of stuff, right? If you don't receive anything from that email or anything like that, again, wait a day or two, follow up with a phone call. Again, you want to show that you're interested in this position. If you are not following up, that tells me that you're not interested. Now, you don't know anything that's going on my end as to why there might be a holdup in getting back to you. I might have gone on vacation. I might have been sick. I may have given this to somebody else who now they're dropping the ball. So again, those are things where it's like, if you contact me and you say, hey, like I haven't heard anything, I might check with my team and be like, yo, like what happened? I thought this gave this to y'all. Oh, y'all dropping the ball. Okay, cool. Then I can get back to you and say, hey, you should hear something within the next 48 hours. You should hear something within the next, yada, yada, yada kind of deal. All right. Also remember, relax, take your time. Don't rush. Don't get overly frustrated and flustered, all that kind of stuff. Take your time in your interview. Like it's very important that you give the best impression of yourself while you're there. All right. And with that, let's take a little break. Thanks for listening to another episode on Life's Hidden Curriculum Podcast. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, as we're on the road to 10,000 subscribers. If you like this content and want to support, head over to the website, lifeshiddencurriculum.com, and click donate. Also, I'm always looking for guests to share their stories, especially if it can help the next generation. Hit me up using the contact link. Thanks again, and stay tuned for more.